united with Christ. Meet local churches with open doors, serving throughout the Border Valley community and sharing the truth and hope of God's love and salvation. A presentation of Life Christian Broadcasting Television. And now, United with Christ.
Hello, welcome and thank you for joining us for our weekly programming of United with Christ. And it's been a pleasure again. So I'd like to thank the station, Channel 38, as they celebrate 35 years of ministry here in this area, in our community. And it's been a blessing being able to be these past month and a half on this 11 o'clock hour and sharing about the topic of a Christian worldview, Christian education, that we will be continuing today. These past weeks, from different perspectives, we have heard the importance of having a Christian worldview about teaching our students, teaching our children the ways of the Lord. And of course, we've mentioned that teaching them God's ways, God's commandments, God's promises, God's blessings, and so forth, everything that Jesus taught, that begins at home. And we understand that as parents. But also that opportunity for us as parents to have them in that close relationship with God when they are at school, whether it be private or in public education. And of course, the role of the church in also continuing that that area of just bringing up our kids in the Word. So these past weeks, we had it's our pleasure at Emmanuel Church to have a very important ministry that has been serving here in the city for the past 53 years, and it is a private school from K2 all the way to 12th grade, approximately 525 students that will, and we'll mention this in a bit, will be increasing next year. But also reminding you all that there are many teachers in public schools that are doing their best, and we keep them in prayer that they are able to be able to also give testimony, to share with students about their faith, something that it's getting harder and harder for them to do. But we thank those teachers that are out there in that area as well. So we've heard from our head of school, we've heard from our athletic department here in another time of our program, we heard from parents, we heard from former students and so forth. But today I'd like to share a perspective that's a little bit in depth, and this is a daily view. And today my guest is Victor Delgado, who is also a pastor, but Victor is our building supervisor, and our building, because of so many people coming in and out, which is close to 800 daily, gets a lot of use. So the importance of having just a good place, not only secure, but clean and safe and all this, it's a lot to do. But also, I would like for Mr. Delgado to share how, as he does his duties and supervises the maintenance, well, he sees a lot of things from our students. He experiences a lot of things, and that's why today I wanted to get his perspective of what that is, what that means every day there at Emmanuel Christian School. So let me ask you, Victor, and one of my questions that I want to start off with is that we've spoken about Christian worldview education for the past 2 months, and you as a parent, Victor, have a child that graduated from Emmanuel, but can you share what your experience along with your wife was as a parent, and also as you walk the building, what do you see in the environment of a Christian school? Victor will be answering in Spanish, and I will translate to English.
Primeramente, muchas gracias por invitarme, por extendernos la invitación para algo tan importante como es la educación de nuestros hijos. Gracias, Mr. Rico. Y como padre y como alguien que está en el edificio desde muy temprano, quiero compartir primeramente como padre mi experiencia en la educación cristiana. Es 100% satisfactoria, 100% satisfactoria como padres, porque involucra la vida personal, familiar, y es una satisfacción ver a nuestros hijos sirviendo al Señor y sobre todo educados en un ambiente sano, en un ambiente de cristiano, en un ambiente en el que lo puede uno disfrutar los beneficios diariamente.
So he says that it has been a blessing of having one of his children graduate from the school, but also experiencing that daily blessing of seeing kids being educated with a Christian worldview. And I've mentioned this before, in all their classes, including the sciences, the maths, the biology, the chemistry, all that, a Christian perspective as well. And it's been a blessing of his since he is there. He's the first one to arrive and sometimes the last one to leave.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
But it has been a blessing for these past years.
Pero no solamente como padre, porque tengo la satisfacción de que mi hija empezó desde primer año hasta su graduación. Actualmente está en la universidad aquí en El Paso. Pero también trabaja, sirve también en el Ministerio de Niños. Y es una, como lo digo, es una bendición, pero es una satisfacción, una tranquilidad. Le da uno una tranquilidad como padre, poderlos ver educados en una escuela cristiana con fundamentos firmes, sólidos, pero también en un ambiente natural y alegre. Lo puedo ver cada día. Los estudiantes no se ven bajo esa presión, sino se ven como en familia, se ven que disfrutan su día en la escuela. Y pues sí, es presión también, por supuesto, por nivel de educación, pero también se puede disfrutar cada día como un ambiente familiar. Se saluda a uno, los ve comer, los ve invitarse, como ahora la fiesta que acaba de pasar, como ponen sus cartulinas, sus flores para invitar a quien les va a acompañar a la... Es verdaderamente parte de la satisfacción cotidiana que vivimos.
Another blessing that Victor mentions is how he saw a blessing of his daughter starting at first grade and then graduating, and of course now going to UTEP for college, and also that she is also now part of a ministry as she helps us in the area of children. And that for him has not only been a blessing, but it has been a very satisfying experience. And he sees it as a very tranquil feeling. But believe me, and we understand there that it is definitely not without its issues like every single school. There's always issues in behavior and in maybe grades and what every school faces. But also what he says is he doesn't see the many hard issues that we are seeing out there in many places. And that is good to see because you see smiles, you see good activities happening, with the sports, with parents, the prom that they just had last weekend, and the students inviting, their friends to it and so forth. So I agree with you. As I walk the halls as well every morning, it is one of those feelings that you feel that you're doing the right thing. That as parents,
Exactly.
we're doing the right thing.
Sí.
And again, I encourage those that are watching that there's no greater thing than instructing our children, our maybe grandchildren, in the ways of the Lord, which is righteous,
Sí.
which is true, which is real, and we see the benefits
Yes.
of that. So thank you for sharing that, Victor.
Claro que sí.
Let me ask you in another question, because as I mentioned, you are a pastor as well for a number of years. As we preach the Word of God, as we teach the Word of God, and as we reach with the Word of God to the people, about a relationship with Christ. How important do you think it is for us to reach students, to reach the young people, the young generation? How important is that?
Lo vemos cada mañana, lo vemos cada día. Hay varias cosas que traen una satisfacción muy grande, pero una de las que quiero mencionar como a nivel de lo que uno mira diariamente en la escuela es esto: oír el juramento en la mañana. Oye uno todos los días el juramento a la bandera, lo cual es totalmente correcto. Lo escucha uno, lo escuchamos en los pasillos, en el área en que esté. Lo segundo que es poderoso es escuchar a los maestros de ese día orar. Orar diariamente por lo que está pasando en la escuela, en su educación. Les dedican un tiempo para desearles un buen día. Pero yo creo que no solo lo hacen a los estudiantes, nos ayudan a nosotros a formar parte de esa satisfacción, de ese bienestar. Trabajamos como empleados, trabajamos muy a gusto. Le decía hace poquito, regresando un poquito a lo que acabamos de mencionar, a una joven de la escuela, le digo, este muchacho, la forma en la que la miraba, le digo yo, este muchacho te va a invitar, te va a invitar. Y ella sonríe, al prom, ajá. Y un día, dos antes de que fuera la fiesta, muy contenta, me dice, Mr. Delgado, dijo, sí me invitó. Sí me invitó, o sea, tal y como yo le dije, y nos sonreímos porque esas son las clases de cosas que pasan diariamente. Los ve uno cómo se miran, cómo el ambiente limpio en el que se ven. Uno ve sus miradas y son confiables, se sienten confiados. Y una de las cosas que también impacta es la forma de adorar. No se ven arrastrando los pies, no se ven. Ellos van al santuario, levantan manos o aplauden. La forma en la que celebran, tanto en el gimnasio como en el santuario. Los ve uno que celebran con libertad. Y así debería ser. Vivimos en una nación libre, nación bajo Dios, y verlos celebrar tanto en el gimnasio como en el santuario no tiene precio, definitivamente.
Victor says another experience that he finds it so just a blessing, just awesome in his eyes, is the day starts at the school with prayer. Every day, there's prayer for all the classes in the intercom, but also our students start the day also with a national, with a Pledge of Allegiance. And then, of course, that is, I think, something that is very important, especially of what we're seeing out there. And we're not here to talk politics, but it does discourage me when I see on the news when our country is just being talked about in a bad way. And of course, we know we're not in a perfect country. But when you see our flag being burned, when they say, death to America, I mean, as Christians, I know we have to forgive, but it is still difficult to see. And that's why I agree with you, Victor, as we start the day with prayer, but also the Pledge of Allegiance that we are one nation under God. So you get to see that as well. You get to see the smiles. You get to see the spills in the cafeteria. I mean, you get to see everything. Yes, everything's an accident. But what you mentioned, you also see the part not only in the academics that you just mentioned, but in their Christian walk. Again, our Christian walk is like a roller coaster. Has its ups, has its downs, has its great moments, has its difficult moments. But you also see that the way they handle those, because hopefully we're planting that seed that we don't face those issues, problems, and giants on our own. We have a God that is with us. Yes. And through his word. And you see that in chapel as they go to chapel that we have on Fridays. and there's a speaker, and then whether it be a student, a teacher, an invited speaker, as they do their music, with the worship band and the drums and electric guitar, well, everything else. And you see them thanking God, praising God.
Celebrando.
And of course, there's many that are new to this. And I hope we're doing a job in being able to give them the best Christian worldview education, but also of having that relationship with
God.
Christ. So I'm glad you get to see that.
Yes.
And as a pastor, that is important.
It's very important.
For us as well. So what changes now, speaking about the changes, the things we see out in society, what changes, Victor, have we, maybe as pastors, as we maybe as churches, as private schools, because we're not the only private school, Christian private school, and again, we wish there were more Christian private schools teaching a Christian worldview. We do have other ones that here in town, like Jesus Chapel. We have Rose of Sharon, St. Mark's on the west side. I mean, and it is important for children to grow in that atmosphere of a Christian worldview. But is there anything you have seen that we have failed to change in our reach, in our outreach, in our evangelistic efforts? Is there anything that we have failed to change to do a better job in reaching those people out in the community?
Yo pienso que lo que podemos hacer y lo que estamos haciendo como escuela cristiana en Emmanuel es enseñarle a ellos que tienen libertades. Ellos son libres más que nunca. Son jóvenes que son libres, nacieron en un país libre y que tienen que disfrutar esa libertad. La forma en que se les está enseñando es que son libres y lo que tienen que hacer es usar su libertad de la manera correcta. Se les está enseñando que es una nación bajo Dios, que tienen una educación ilimitada, ¿verdad? Y que como iglesia necesitamos, o escuela cristiana, perdón, necesitamos enfocar más en que no se les está diciendo cómo pensar, qué hacer, no estamos decidiendo por ellos, no se les está obligando, se les está enseñando sus libertades que tienen como ciudadanos y su libertad en Cristo Jesús, que la usen apropiadamente. Porque lo que estamos viendo es algo que no es libertad, es alrededor lo que estamos viendo es una mala expresión de lo que es la libertad en opinión de algunas personas. No puede haber libertad si no la podemos enseñar, si no hay una libertad también para los demás, para la opinión de los demás. Bueno. Y en nuestra escuela están aprendiendo ellos a ser libres, tanto espiritualmente como libres civilmente en su nación. Pero también con el fundamento de decir, nunca hagas cosas que lastimen a los demás, ofendan a los demás en tu expresión de libertad.
Right.
En tu expresión. Como ahorita hay graduaciones que están siendo afectadas. Así que jóvenes que se afectó en el 2020 por el COVID, ahora su graduación de colegio está siendo afectada por una protesta que se escuda bajo la libertad. Yo pienso que podemos hacer todavía mejor en eso, enseñarles que la libertad es de ellos, que fue pagada tanto por nuestros héroes y bíblicamente por nuestro Señor, que la deben aprovechar y expresar cada día mejor.
Right. Victor answered that through our teaching, through our reaching, there are things that unfortunately we see out there that are affecting our students. He did mention that those that were affected in their high school graduation during COVID are now graduating from college. Now we have these protests that are going on, and that's affecting their graduation. But at the same time, we are not there to, I would say, indoctrinate. We're there to share the Word of God. We're there to plant seeds
Correcto.
Just like at home, we're there as parents to teach our kids to be righteous in the eyes of the Lord, not to try to impress anyone else except be a living sacrifice in the eyes of the Lord. But we do see the changes in society, and that's why sometimes, like I asked you, we fail to recognize some things that we need to adapt to in order for our children to see that what the world thinks as successful, as correct, the Word doesn't. And again, we go back to the Word of God,
Exacto.
back to the truth,
Que no
back
es
to the infallibility, the inerrancy of the Word of God. And because we are living in difficult times. Now, is it end times? We don't know. God does. He knows the time. He knows
exacto.
when He will come back for His church. But we know that. We know we have that victory. And that's what at times gets us through this difficult time, that we know that victory is right there because He gave it to us when God sent His Son to die for each and every one of us on the cross. For us to share that to students, to our children, is so important. But because of that, if you have a child, if you have a college student, if you know someone that might need that prayer because they're in that difficult time of their life, feel free to call the prayer line, 915-532-8518, and there's people that will answer and pray for maybe that student. Might be a son, a daughter, a next door neighbor, a cousin that they need to open their hearts to Christ. And we know there's a lot of need out there. For this final 4.5 minutes that we have, Victor, the school, as a blessing, we have been blessed, and next year we will have even more students. Why? Parents are realizing that there's a lot of things that are happening where parents were not even able to make decisions for our own children of what they're going to be taught. What can you tell parents in maybe a minute about the importance of a Christian worldview, de la importancia de una cosmovisión cristiana?
Nosotros como padres y pastores también no podemos, como lo expresaba Pastor Rico, no podemos decirles qué hacer o tomar decisiones por ellos, pero sí podemos darles la educación que les va a ayudar en el momento difícil, en el momento que tengan que tomar sus decisiones de una manera personal, pero con fundamento bíblico, con honor, con respeto. Primeramente por el Señor nuestro Dios y también por ellos mismos, respetarse ellos y tomar decisiones en los valores que como cristianos sí podemos como padres decir vamos a darles una mejor educación. Qué mejor que una escuela cristiana, qué mejor verlo como una inversión y es la manera en la que podemos ayudar en su futuro, a ayudarlos a ellos. Quizá no vamos a estar ahí para cuando ellos necesiten tomar una decisión difícil, pero si les alimentamos ahorita y se crea ese fundamento sólido, ellos en el futuro van a tomar buenas decisiones. Ayuden a sus hijos, ayúdenos a nosotros, ayúdenos en oración, orando por la generación, hijos vecinos, hijos que jóvenes que rodean ahorita en nuestro entorno. Hay mucha juventud y a veces solo señalamos la manera en la que están perdidos, pero no les señalamos cuál es la dirección donde ellos pueden encaminarse para un mejor futuro. Yo invitaría a eso, Mr.
I think you said it perfectly, Victor, and the key word would be prayer.
Prayer.
We all need prayer. We all need to pray. We all need to thank God, ask God, seek His wisdom, pray for others. And we see that important because it is a daily communication with Him in so many ways. And I think that's where we reach the point of separation, especially, like you said, we do our best when they leave the school that there's a seed planted.
Así es.
When it comes to a point where they graduate and they go to college, they have decisions to make. And unfortunately, if they're not cemented in the Word of God, they're going to stray from the Word of God, from the Word. They're going to stray because there's not that communication, relationship,
With God.
with God. And that's the part that I hope to talk about in the next coming weeks, about the importance of even that Christian worldview and education, even beyond our high school years, where we're losing these multitudes of college students that we now see going and believing things that media tells them and so forth, because again, they are not seeking truth. We know what truth is.
Exactamente.
It is the Word of God.
La palabra.
And we are reaching and we are sometimes failing to grasp that we are losing these now college students to that. So I hope we do a better job in that manner.
así
Again,
es.
if there is someone that you know we could pray about, call the prayer line, because we know that there's a lot of hurting people out there.
Yeah.
What we're doing our best is to explain that even as students, whether they be elementary, middle school, high school, college, that we need to seek God in all ways, in all forms.
Así es.
It begins at home. Again, I encourage every single parent here to teach a true, meaningful relationship with Christ at home. Take time to pray with your children. Instruct them, love them, and teach them in all forms the way of the Lord. Again, thank you for being with us in United with Christ, and we will see you soon, which is sometime next week. May God bless you.